everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to take a look at another PC-98 game. Oh joy, another one of these kind of games. So the one I'm doing today is on Night Slave, and it was developed and published by Melody, and it was released in 1996. And it's an action platform shoot 'em up. And yes, as you can see here, it does indeed involve mechs. And that's always a badass thing to include mechs in a video game, of course it is. Unless you're Cyber Knight on SNES and it's more like Cyber Feces, but you know, I've already talked about that game. But anyways, now let's talk about the game's story, which will not take long at all. So you play as a character named Ray, who I assure you does not look anything like this Ray, and you happen to be a mecha pilot who works under a all-female squad called Steel Fox. And they're trying to protect the world from a terrorist organization called Slave Dog. So pretty much it's like the Disney movie Fox and the Hound, but with mechs and shit. And that is exactly what you should expect for a game like this. And one really important thing I have to mention is that it wouldn't be a PC-98 game without the hentai scenes, would it? Would it? Well, yes, you are correct. There are hentai scenes in here, but you actually do get the option to turn them off and on, so if you do want to keep it PG. But you know what would be hilarious? Imagine if you were a kid living in Japan in the 90s, and your parents happened to buy you this game because they saw the cover and was like, oh, this looks like a cool game, and we happen to have a PC-98 back at home. It makes me wonder if something like that actually has happened before, but anyways, now let's get to the main gameplay. So it's side-scrolling mecha action, very similar to the Assault Suit series, where you can jump around, use jetpacks, shoot in like multiple directions, and you gotta go from point A to point B and fight a boss at the end, and bang bang shooty shooty, there you go. And while as you would expect, you do get a power-up system, and the way how it works is very similar to Gradius. So at the bottom corner, you see all the available upgrades you can get, and every time you pick up a power-up, it'll go over that selected one, and whatever you use it on, it'll go back to 0 until you pick up another power-up. And you can unlock more primary and sub-weapons, but you have to get a certain amount of points in order to do so. And now let's start talking about the game's controls, and I have to say, they're actually not too bad. So I use a keyboard to play this, since that is how it was originally intended. Now normally you'd be thinking that a game like this being played on a keyboard would be a real nuisance, but I actually found that it worked quite well, so there's not a whole lot of buttons that you need to memorize. It's just jump, shoot, and selecting the power up, and of course moving up and down. And aiming in all directions isn't too bad either. In fact, it is very similar to, like I said, the Assault Suit series and even Metal Warriors from Konami. And if you double tap forward, you can do a little bit of an extra boost, and if you double tap the jump button, then you can give yourself a boost with a jetpack for a short time. And I gotta say, it all worked quite well, like none of it felt delayed, or lagged, or glitched, or anything. So now, let's get moving on and start talking about the game's graphics. And the graphics for this game are pretty good, but I will say though, for 1996, it's not the best looking. In fact, I think it could have looked a whole lot better, but with that said though, there are still some really nice details to this game, like the art direction. So it's really the cutscenes are what looks the greatest here. Now, there's not a whole lot of animation going on here, it's all just still images though, but I just really like the way how they all look here, since as you know, I'm a pretty huge sucker into some of these PC-98 graphics. But the in-game graphics still look pretty good. There are some nice spots, and I do like the backgrounds in the game, even though there are some spots in the game that do have like scanline looking things, but that's actually just how it's supposed to look. But it's still a pretty good looking game. I mean, I'll say this game definitely looks a lot better than some of those hentai fighting games I've taken a look at last time. Well, maybe not Valkyrie the Power Beauties, that one is still a lot better looking than this game, but as for the other two, yeah, this one totally kicks its ass. And another thing I do like is that when you first boot up the game, you get this flying space background, which really reminds me of the screensaver from Windows 98 with the flying space. It's pretty great. But overall, the graphics I still think look really nice for this type of game. Now, of course it could have looked a lot better given the time of its release, but still, I think it looks really good for what it is. And now, as for the game's music, the music is pretty great. So first of all the songs fit really well with the scenes, and of course you do get quite a bit of catchy tunes here and there. And it has that really unique PC-98 sound, which I really do like, It's hard to explain what it is, but in a lot of ways it does kind of remind me of like a really awesome like Sega Genesis sound, but also mixed with like MSX or something. I don't know, like I said, it's a tough to explain, but once you hear them though, it's pretty great. And I can recommend listening to the soundtrack on your own time. And now, if you wanted to go out and buy this game, well, like I always say with PC-98 games, they're really difficult to find, even on eBay, and as for this one, I couldn't find shit all. But if you do want to play this one though, I did found that ANEX86 does play this game really well with no issues and no confusion. And Neko Project is pretty good too, but I do find that one can be a little bit confusing sometimes. So now, as for my overall thoughts on Night Slave, is that I actually found this game to be quite good. Yeah, that's right, I'm actually talking about a good PC-98 game. But as good fun as it is to blow up everything in sight in this game, I have to warn you all that this game is really fucking hard. Now, it may not be nearly as hard as something like Silver Surfer, but it's still not an easy game by any means. But I'd say that the main thing that makes this game so hard is the bosses. Yeah, the levels themselves are not too bad, and usually they're pretty short. But the bosses are just really fucking difficult because they just take forever to take down. And there's no health power-ups during the boss fights. And even if you have a power-up that allows you to gain your health up a little bit, it still doesn't gain it up by much, so it's still really tough. And trying to get better weapons in the game is also pretty hard because you need like a big amount of score points just to be able to do so. And trying to get a higher score in this game means that you gotta play it more dangerously. But yeah, that's really my only big complaint with the game, is that the difficulty is a little bit unbalanced though, but aside from that though, it is a pretty solid game. Not 100% sure if I'd say it's better or worse than some of the comparisons I made before, like the Assault Suit series or Metal Warriors, since it has been a while since I played those, but for the most part though, I do think this is a pretty good PC-98 game, a lot better than a lot of the other ones that I've been taking a look at so far. And with that being said, thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day. So yeah, if I ever do another PC-98 review, it's not gonna be a hentai game, I promise.
I lied.